Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you this evening. So we had a gentleman bring us a pinball machine. He says it's been in his house for years and he hasn't plugged it in. Now on the front of it, there's a bunch of dust. So I'm thinking it was sitting on this bottom, which is how you're supposed to store them, for a long time. And the dust kind of proves it, doesn't it? And look at this. Okay, all you experts out there, now I need your help. What the hell is that? Look at that. That's a freaking possum, ain't it? I think that's a possum. I don't think that's a dog. It might be, but I don't think so. That's something, ain't it? So there has been some kind of animal on it. We'll figure it out. That's the only two I can see that look like they're actual tracks. That might be the same thing there, but I can't tell. What do you think's under this thing? Joe, they already looked at the title. Now, man, I messed it up again. I forgot. We title the video and then you can tell what it is. Okay, so this is how we got it. We've got it on a cart here. We're going to unwrap it, see what kind of shape it's in. So here's what he wants us to do. He wants us to just test it and see what's up with it. And then call him and let him know if it needs any work or if it's playable the way that it is. If there's some stuff like the rubbers and things like that, I think he wants to do it himself. So we'll see how that goes. But he basically just wants us to diagnose it and see if the thing is capable of working. So this is what we're starting with. See if I can get a good thumbnail. There we go. That's our thumbnail. If I move it to the side, I can put some text on it. There we go. There's our thumbnail. I wonder if it'll let me just take a picture by hitting the button. All right, so we're going to move it and unwrap it. SHAQ ATTAQ. It was kind of filthy. The legs are dirty. We cleaned them up a little bit with a wire brush. They had a bunch of like mud daubers nests on them and stuff, and some June bugs. Had decided to come along for the ride. It's got some rust on the side, but to be honest, we've had Gottliebs before that do that too. So, not the end of the world. The translight's all faded, but again, they all kind of do that. So it's just been routed, and it's in as found shape. Now this thing has a tag on it that it was sold in February of 2018 to this gentleman. So it's now late 2022. So it's been wrapped up for about 4.5 years. So check out the playfield a little bit. These pretty much had full mylar on them from the factory. So they get dirty and filthy and all that, but they don't necessarily lose a lot of their paint and stuff. Of course, we'll have to take the glass off to see better. And I don't know on the specific title like where all the issues usually are. It kind of looks like something's missing here. Right, and it's just generally filthy. There's a lot of stuff going on. That may, if that ends up being a ramp like that one that's missing, a wire form, that might be a big problem. I've never played this one. We had one, a playfield for one time, but what was the deal with that? We had the playfield and the cabinet because we had the power supply.
It didn't have none of the boards.
Didn't have any of the boards or something like that. Okay, so we're going to take the translight out and see what the boards look like. It's been sitting for 4.5 years. And then see, we'll plug it in if everything looks like it's doable. I guess we might look under the playfield first. Let's open. Okay. Joe just slide it out of there for us. Back box door. Okay. So you know what we're looking for, right? So here is the soundboard. That's the auxiliary soundboard. That's the auxiliary power supply. That's the regular power supply with the original potentiometer. This is the display driver board. Okay. This is the regular driver board, and oh snap! Can you say remote mounted battery? Somebody took the little button battery off and moved it off the board. That button battery doesn't usually leak, but sometimes it does. We'll see if this one has. Doesn't look like it, but okay. Joey, I think we might be able to just plug it up. You think we should look under the playfield? You're ready to go, ain't you? Joey's ready to do it.
I need an extension cord.
If you don't know, Joey's 4 times faster than I am at everything.
Look at this. Show him this. Look what he did.
Joe, it looks better this way.
He had me turn the game that way.
Go get your cord. Look, folks. Look, we're in one of our front showrooms. Look, if you're going to work on it, you got to work on it like that. I can't turn it with the back to the window. Then everybody goes, "Oh, what game are they working on?" I want them to see what we're working on. Look at all this stuff we're working on. We got goodies everywhere. They can see all the goodies, Joe. Now look, he went to get an extension cord. He needed 3 inches.
Well,
he got 30 feet.
I got the first one I could find.
Okay, here we go. Nothing. It's dead, buddy.
You ready?
I'm ready.
You still ready? Coming in hot.
All right, turn her off, Joe. Okay, so that could be a power supply thing. These power supplies are bad about that potentiometer getting in a bad spot. Hit it again, Joe. All right, turn her off. Okay, so we're going to have to check the power supply voltage and see if we can figure out what's up. But we're getting nothing as of yet. So we'll unplug the main MPU and some of the boards and see if we're getting our 5 volts out of the power supply and what we need to do from there. So he was thinking that it might work just fine, but it ain't working just fine. It's going to need a little help. So we'll see what we can do to get it to at least boot up for us. Okay, folks, we broke out the multimeter. The battery is fine. Sometimes they won't boot right on a Gottlieb if the battery is dead. The battery's fine. We reconnected the connectors. Everything's cool, but the power supply is too high. So it's at like 6 volts instead of 5 volts. So that's always fun. That's what these do. And like I was saying, it's because of that little potentiometer. So we're going to take this little power supply out and replace the potentiometer so that we can get it dialed in at 5 volts. So we'll do that first. Okay, folks, so we checked the power on the 5-volt power supply, and it was a little high. And those things are horrible about the potentiometer won't adjust the power very well. So we took out the old one. It's all screwed up. Whenever you test it, you get values jumping all over the place. So we put in a new one and dialed the power in perfectly to 5 volts. Same exact problem. It just beeps, 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 and resets over and over again, which is a kind of common thing on these System 3s. So the next thing that you check, once you get the power right, you need to check the battery. This battery, the voltage is fine. It's over 3 volts. I don't know that we'll leave this like this, but that's what's going on. They originally had a lithium battery, or a cell battery, so you can put that back on if you'd like. These people have put some kind of taped up thing hanging off the board. I don't necessarily like that. Looks like there's a spring in there. I don't know why there is a spring. Might have to figure that out. But if it's not the battery, the next thing to check is this timing circuit right here. So this is a 74 HC123. And apparently the HC is very important. You don't want to do an LS. Setting for HC123. But what we're going to do first is these two capacitors right here, C21 and C20, are tantalum caps that you can replace with electrolytic caps or a ceramic cap or a tantalum cap. They're 1 microfarad, but they need to kind of be tight. So you don't want to use one that's going to be real sloppy. So you don't want to go too far from 1 microfarad. So that's why a tantalum is a little better, because it's got a little more accurate capacitance. You can also use like a film cap if you want, but you can use a what's the word? What am I thinking? Positive and negative. What's the word for that? You can use one of those, a polarized. You can use a polarized cap. The positive goes towards the connector, the negative goes towards the bottom of the chip, but you can figure out by looking in the schematics too. So we're going to pull those off. I'm going to look and see what I've got in the way of a 1 microfarad capacitor to replace them with. Okay, we'll pull out the original ones here in a second and see what we can see about those, but I have some that's a U, isn't it? That's not a moo, that's a U. 1 unpronounceable 35 volt, but it is a 20%. So that means it could be a 1.2. We don't know. It could be a 0.8. We don't know. And then I have these. 1 microfarad, 25 volt, 10%. Okay, so that's a little better. It's going to be a 110 or a 90, somewhere in between there, right? So I like those a little nicer. So let me pull off the old ones and let's see what they originally were. Okay, let's see what our amplification skills are like on this camera. Here we go. I can't read it with my eye. MER 406. Okay, that's going to be a date code or something. Now, if it's upside down, people, we're just going to have to deal with it. There we go. 105. That is a 1 microfarad capacitor, but it's not polarized. So that is not a tantalum. That's a, maybe, there's a little dot there. I think that's just a ceramic cap. I don't know. But that's what we're looking at. Okay, so we're going to replace them. And I'm going to orientate them as I talked about. I also put a battery holder in here. Now, before you go all cray-cray on me, the original one was just soldered right to the board. It was one of these bad boys with with leads on it that were welded on it. Someone removed that and put a remote thing on it. But the thing is, these don't leak very often. So if you have a holder, and people swap them out from time to time, it's going to be all good. I've got to see what in the world. There's a zip tie and a screw or something in there. I don't know what in the world they're doing. We got to go in and look at that. That looks ridiculous. Come on, people. Now let me show you one other thing. Here's the positive lead. It's on this side. Now look where it goes, just so you know. Just so you know, I don't want to hear no crap. So here's the positive lead. It's both of these. And the only place it goes is to the pin of this Dallas chip. Now, why is that important? It's because it doesn't connect to the 5 on the board in any way. So nothing's going to try to charge that. That's why the original one was just soldered right to the board. It doesn't have a diode or anything. Okay, let's check out the schematics for a second so we make sure we put these tantalums the right way. All right, folks, so here's where you're going to get upset, but it's going to be okay. You're going to be all right, folks. You're going to be all right, okay? Now, notice we're dealing with 5 volts on everything, okay? So these things are rated at 50 volts. But they don't really have to be 50 volts. Now, I know some of you are like, oh, God, the guy is changing it. It's going to be all right, folks. Okay, now if you look at the way they are showing the capacitor the little curved line is the negative side. So the negative goes towards pin 6. And then up here, the negative goes towards pin 14. Now, I didn't invent this. I'm not the first redneck to do this. Other people have done this many, many times. It works just fine. Okay? So in a perfect world, you would get a film capacitor that's a 1 microfarad that's not polarized and put it in, and then it doesn't matter which way you put it. And the same on this one. Okay? Now let's look at the parts list and see what they originally called for it. So it just says capacitor 1. Funny way of writing microfarad, 20%, 50 volt. But if you look at the one above it. It's a 10 volt. So that blows my whole theory out of the way. I was about to say they're all 50 volt. Well, some of them aren't. Okay. So they don't really say what it was. And they also say it's a 20%. So if we're putting a 10%, we should be all right. Okay. I'm not too worried about the 50 volts. I think they used the 50 volt because that's about the smallest 1 microfarad ceramic 20% cap that you can find. They were the same price. I just don't happen to have any right now. So we're going to pop the 35 volt one in and hope that it doesn't, or 5 volts, never gets anywhere near 35 volts. I think we'll be just fine. So that's what we're going to attempt, and we'll see if it'll boot with that. But I think that's our problem. Now you might say, why are you so sure this is the problem? I'm not sure anything's the problem, but this ain't my first rodeo, and this ain't the first SHAQ ATTAQ that showed up at somebody's shop beeping like crazy and won't boot. Let me show you that part of the schematic just so you see what's going on. So here's the 6502. That's the MPU. There is a reset circuit. There is a watchdog circuit. You can actually turn the watchdog off and get it to boot as well. But what's going on is it's getting some kind of, I guess it's the circuit that basically holds the chip low at the beginning or something. I don't know. But U11 is sending a signal up here to the watchdog circuit and resetting it over and over and over again. I'll check and see if either one of those capacitors is actually shorted or if they're just out of spec or what the deal is. But my whole point is, the reason that I'm focusing in this area is because this is like very common. System 3 stuff. It's usually U11 and it's usually these 2 capacitors. So we'll see. Okay, folks. So I hope you can see that. I don't know. Can you see it? I think you can see it. Okay, so we're going to check the capacitance. So we have this meter. It's a Kaiwitz meter that somebody sent us. One of our beautiful customers sent us this quite a while ago. So I checked the 2 little caps, and neither one of them were shorted. So let's see how much juice is in them. I think these have juice in them, don't they? Let's see how much juice is inside one of these suckers. So here's our first one. Now I'm holding it with my fingers, so that may change it a little bit, but let's see what happens. 898 nanofarads. Boy, that's pretty close to 1,000, ain't it? So that's 15% off. No, about 10% off. So that's pretty good. That one ain't that bad. So that probably ain't our problem. Maybe when it has a lot of juice running through it, it messes it up or something. Let's see if the other one's any good. Here we go. 700. Whoop. What's going on? It looked like it was there for a second. 783 nanofarads. So that's a little out of spec. I don't know. I'm not so positive that's going to fix this because those are not crazy out of spec, I don't think. But we'll try. So I swapped in the other ones. Can you see them? Right here. They're right here. I got them in. Negative is this way. Positive is towards the connector if you're doing it yourself. Okay? Let's see if that works. Maybe, maybe not. All Alright folks, Joey left. It's just me now. Let's try it. Hey, do you have your fingers crossed? I might need your toes crossed on this one. Well, that's better. It kicked the ball out. Wow. Well, that got it to boot. Okay, so we talked with the customer, and he said he wants to do the cosmetic stuff, which I can understand. That's kind of fun. But we're going to have to do a little bit more work, I think. This thing, you know, hasn't been messed with in a long time. And all of the general illumination is out. Or at least the GI on the playfield. So we'll have to mess with that a little bit. Okay, there are a whole bunch of balls in the shooter lane here. Whew, it didn't like that. Oh, the door opened. Ah! Whew! That was scary, wasn't it? Okay. I've seen this problem before. If you get too many balls in there, they won't shoot. All right, we got them locked up there somewhere. Oh, they made it down. Okay. So 4 balls made it down. Let's see if we can get anything to happen here. Shaquille O'Neal. We love you, Shaq. The flippers are flipping. All right, I gotta turn the lights back on. The thing is so filthy. I can't really see. Hey! What in the world was that? It like went up in the air. Okay, so it's actually working, but the general illumination is not. So let me see if I can. The sound is working, the speech is working, the display is working, the CPU is working. We might have some driver board problems, but let's see if we can figure out what's going on with the general illumination. It may just be all the bulbs are screwed up. So let's take the glass off and see what we got going on. Come on, people. Okay, folks, so we have taken it apart a little bit. This thing is filthy, but that's okay. So it's got a lot of dust bunnies in it, which is usually because it was probably in a laundromat. So that, you know, that looks like the stuff that comes out of a dryer. And rats probably carried it inside the machine and made a little nest. Not the end of the world. It'll be all right. But it needs to be cleaned up a little bit. The gentleman wants to do the cosmetic stuff himself, so we're leaving it kind of how it is. But we did want to make sure that everything worked all right, and so I put it in solenoid test mode and went through and tested all of the solenoids are working. And then I went into switch test mode, and all of the switches are working. So it's kind of a working game. Now there's a bunch of light bulbs that don't work, but that's kind of something you do while you clean it up. You go through and you replace all the bulbs as you go. But it definitely needs cleaned up, needs new rubber rings on everything. So whenever somebody brings us one that's just filthy like this, it's kind of hard to play test it because the balls have rust all over them. And, you know, like up here, the flipper rings are broke, so I can't really play it. If I play it, we're going to cause damage to the play field and everything else. But this thing has been rode hard. Look at the basket. So, you know, but it's kind of typical of a game that was probably routed for a long time. It probably sat in that laundromat for 10 years just being played all the time, and they probably did very little maintenance to it. And here we are all these years later, and the thing kind of still works. Now, the problem we had with the capacitors and, you know, on the CPU, which, by the way, here those are. Just in case the haters, you know, don't really believe that that will work. That will absolutely work. Other than that, that probably happened after they took it off route, or maybe it started doing that on route, so they picked it up. I don't know, but it very well could have just done that sitting in plastic. It could have been a fully working game, or mostly working game, that got wrapped up. So the general illumination, we talked about that. So okay, so there, what do you believe is the problem with the general illumination? You don't have to be an expert to know what the problem is with the general illumination. How come none of the lights are on that light up the playfield? So you might think, oh, it's the fuse. Makes sense, right? So I went and checked the fuse. Fuse is fine. All the fuses are fine. Okay. And then on a Gottlieb System 3, they have a... If you don't know, Gottlieb was the greatest electromechanical pinball manufacturer. They made a lot of money off of EM pinball machines. So they didn't really like when it went from EM to solid state. Matter of fact, they waited the longest of the other companies. They didn't necessarily want to go solid state. They were quite happy with EM pinball machines. So they kept some of the stuff that was unique to EMs. So for instance, they have their very target here that they so famously had on several of their EM pinball machines. They put one on their solid state game, one of their later, this is one of their last solid state games. And another thing that they kept was they kept relays. So there are a lot of relays in Gottlieb solid state games, including, click. Did you see that? They have a game over relay, a tilt relay, and then a, I don't know what this one's for. I can't remember. But look at this. All of the Gottlieb solid states have these. Watch this. One of them will pull in here. There we go. Isn't that crazy? Okay, so this is the tilt relay here, and if the game tilts, it kills all the general illumination. That's what that switch does. So it could be that, but it was not. So the switch was fine. So what else could it be? It could be that every freaking light bulb in it's burnt out. So I took one out and put in a new one, and it works just fine. So the problem with the general illumination is every one of the light bulbs is burnt out. They stay on the whole time that the game is turned on, and they just all burn out. So that's what's going on. So we will advise the gentleman whenever he cleans it up, clean, replace every freaking light bulb. And then if you still have some issues, stuff that isn't working quite right, we can help him figure that out, or he can bring it back after he gets to play test it, and we can work on the little minor things. Or he may even be able to just bring us the driver board. So yeah, pretty cool. All right, so we're not going to be able to play it this time around, but if it ends up back in here, cleaned up with new pinballs in it. Maybe we can give it a little shot. So there we go. But it was good to get the thing up and running again at least, and kind of just give it a once over. And all of the solenoids are working. All the switches seem to be working. Just needs a good cleaning. So there you go, folks. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you think about it. Make sure to give us a thumbs up for filming it for you. We didn't have to do that. This is some of the typical repair stuff we get in our shop. Just one little thing will be keeping it from doing its thing again. And generally they just need cleaned up a lot, and they need that one little thing fixed, and then the rest of it usually cooperates. So I think that's kind of what this one's doing. And I'm a big fan of the Gottlieb games. I love them. Even SHAQ ATTAQ. There's nothing wrong with SHAQ ATTAQ, people. Come on now. Nothing wrong with it. Look, he's breaking the back glass on the side art there. So leave your comments below. Let us know what you think. Make sure to check out our Amazon links. Do you know about that? If you want to support our channel, one way you can do it is if you click the links down below the videos. There's a description down below each video, and there's a link to Amazon on that. If you click that link before you buy whatever you want to buy on Amazon, it gives us a percentage of your purchase. Somebody the other day bought some really nice high-end bookshelf speakers, and it paid us quite a penny for that. So thank you, whoever that was. But a lot of people will buy just normal stuff on there, so that's fine too. If you buy a pair of socks, if you click our link, we get a little tip for sending you there because you went through our link. So thank you to everybody that's been doing that. And finally, last but definitely not least, don't forget to check out my brother Donnie. So my brother has his own channel here on YouTube as well. We have a channel here where we work on arcade games, pinball machines, and jukeboxes. Look, we got a whole room full of stuff. Several rooms full of stuff. It's getting packed in here, people. We work on all this stuff, but my brother Donnie works on old vehicles. Lately, we've been messing around with a CNC machine, and we work on old buildings over there on his channel. So he has we've bought a couple buildings in a small town near here in their downtown area, and we've been trying to fix them up to help revitalize downtown so people can open up a little store in them or something. And that's been pretty fun. So we've been filming that over on his channel. I'm over there with him most of the time, so make sure to check that out. So what do you think, folks? I'm gonna tell this guy to give us an after picture after he gets it all cleaned up. But I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you on the next video. It's SHAQ ATTAQ.